This is going to be big. Today it's all about the Tannoy Cheviot. It's part of their legacy series that goes back to the 70s. In the 70s, there was the original Tannoy Cheviot and its little brother, the Eaton, and its big brother, the Arden. Now that's actually where it starts for me, is the Arden, because about a year and a half ago, I had spent some time with an original Arden, and I just was knocked out by that sound. It had a 15-inch dual concentric driver. It just had power, it had finesse, it really made a strong impression on me. And I said, I got to get more of that. And now I have with this one, the Cheviot. Now the Cheviot has a dual concentric driver, meaning it's two drivers in one. It's a 12-inch pulp paper driver with a 1.3-inch magnesium alloy tweeter set into a deep waveguide. It's called a tulip waveguide. Now, right, that's kind of unusual. And you might say, you know, isn't that kind of like what KEF does with its UniQ drivers? But KEF came to this later. Tannoy was making dual concentric drivers starting in 1947. And KEF came to making their version, the UniQ, in 1988. So basically, Tannoy invented this technology and has stuck with it ever since. And when you listen to it, you know why. One specification that jumped off the page was the crossover. The crossover from the 12-inch to the 1.3-inch driver is it's really low. It's at 1.2 kilohertz. Now, this is really interesting that this speaker has tone controls, or adjustable level controls, I should say, on the front baffle, right near the bottom. And there's two types of controls. One is called treble roll-off, and one is called treble energy. That's not the most descriptive. Treble energy seems kind of, what? But what it means is the level of the tweeter. You can basically adjust the tweeter up or down with that adjustment plug, which you can plug into those different receptacles on there and adjust the tweeter level up and down. And you can also adjust the roll-off starting at 5K. So it's very flexible. And you see those front ports, those front bass ports, for you people who get weird about rear-mounted bass ports. Those front bass ports, you can stick in a foam plug and block one or two or none of those bass ports and adjust the bass level that way. It's kind of organic, which I think is really cool. So there's a lot of adjustability and room tuning capability to this speaker. So as for other numbers, it's an 8-ohm speaker. It has a 10-year warranty. That's kind of unusual. Most speakers are 5. It has 91 dB sensitivity. It weighs 64 pounds. It feels pretty solid. You know, this is a speaker, it's a big speaker, but it's actually kind of a little speaker. It doesn't feel that big, but it actually is pretty big. And by the way, the finish, the wood is just scrumptious. I think it's walnut, it might be oak, but whatever it is, it's really, really stunning. And just to make sure it stays that way over the years and decades as they roll by, Tannoy includes a can of beeswax furniture polish to keep it looking spiffy over time, which I think is a nice gesture, definitely. Now, round back, before I forget, so the front panel, I'm always looking at the speaker with the grills removed, but it does come with grills, but the grill is kind of unusual that it's a two-part grill. There's a grill that just covers the 12-inch driver and the ports. That's one grill. And then there's a separate grill that covers just the tweeter level controls. So you can have the whole front baffle exposed, you can have just the driver exposed, you can have just the crossover controls exposed, have it your way basically. But again, you don't see that every day. It's really nice. Round back, there are really, really nice, very high quality WBT binding posts. Now, as I'm showing this picture, one thing that might stand out is instead of, it's a by-wire capable speaker, but there's actually 5 posts there, and that's kind of literally an odd number, right? But the 5th post is there for grounding. Now, I don't know, but they say what it's there for is if you have RF problems, noise problems, if you hook up that ground terminal to your amplifier, it may help with RF problems. Now, by the way, I don't usually make a big deal about bi-wiring speakers. But this speaker, well, it comes with, instead of just those metal plates to attach the hot to hot and the ground to ground of the actual binding posts, it has jumpers, which is a nice touch. It's definitely a more high-end approach than using those crappy little metal things. But I decided midway into the review to actually bi-wire the speaker with Nordis bi-wire cable. So this cable is a bi-wire cable. And you know what? It actually made a sizable difference in overall clarity to the speaker. So if possible, I do recommend bi-wiring this speaker. Another little fact tidbit that's pretty cool is each pair of Cheviots is made by one person. Instead of like a conveyor belt factory line approach, one person makes one pair of speakers. That is pretty cool. And they are made in the UK. And, oh, the price. I forgot to mention the price. The price is $6,500 a pair. And I think that's a lot of money, but I think considering the quality that this speaker just radiates, I think it's a very fair price. The speaker I was listening to just before I started this review were the Klipsch Cornwall 4s, which are a substantially larger speaker with a 15-inch woofer. But the cabinet is much bigger. It is a much larger speaker. And when I put the Cheviots in, I definitely felt the difference in size, literally and figuratively. They are smaller speakers. They sound like smaller speakers. But right away, the thing that jumped out about the Cheviot is that it imaged with more precision. It was more coherent. It just had this seamless quality that outpaced the Klipsch. It just sounded more of a whole. Pianos just really sang over this speaker. Pianos just had scale. They had great tone. They weren't too, clangy, weren't too rich, just kind of like right down the middle. But the piano-ness of pianos was startling. Now, I might have mentioned this before, that I dabbled in becoming a piano tuner in the 1980s, and I spent a lot of time working on pianos and being really up close to pianos, and I really have a sense of piano tone. And I think the Cheviot really, really nailed that. So we were off to a great start. For stepping back, I'm going to give you a bigger perspective here. I think the tone of this speaker is on the warmish side of neutral. It's a very, very easy speaker to live with. It doesn't overemphasize harshness in recordings. It's certainly a high-ish res, but not like the ultimate in high res. It's not like the Magnepan LRS kind of res, but it has a tactile quality that I really, really love. The bass is very, very quick. Electric bass sounds good. It has grip. It has texture, it has palpability, because a lot of speakers, even speakers that make bass, they can sound too sloppy, too full, too mushy sounding. Continuing with my bass explorations, I went for Lee Perry's Dub Triptych. Now, you might not know this record, but if you're at all interested in reggae, you should look for this. You can stream it on Tidal. And it's kind of a mishmash collection. They were 3 albums, that's why it's a triptych. But the thing is, it sounds like these albums were recorded in different places at different times, because the sound quality from track to track varies, and the bass varies a lot from track to track. But that's one of the things I like, that I could hear the differences in the bass, how grippy it was, how reach out and touch real it was, and some was kind of muddy and distant and kind of a mess. But I get the feeling that wasn't the speaker's problem. That was just revealing the differences in the mastering and source material that was used to make this CD. Because these were recordings that were done in the 70s and early 80s, so getting masters is probably not such an easy thing. But what I was happy to hear was that the Tannoy really just let me hear into it. There's an amazing, on the better sounding tracks, there's an amazing amount of air and space. I don't think of that as usually as qualities that go on reggae recordings, but again, it was there, and it just pulled me into the music more. Just listening to the differences was part of the fun of this record over the Tannoys. K.D. Lang's Hymns of the 49th Parallel. This is, she's Canadian, and this is a collection of songs by other Canadian writers like Neil Young and Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell and Ron Sexsmith, Bruce Cockburn. But it's a simple, sparse recording, but it just sounds great. I prefer it to, what's that big, very country production one? I think this is a better sounding record. She sounds better on it. She's not so overwhelmed with production. And her voice is the star, and the Tannoys let her just shine through. It really was kind of goosebump territory. I'm getting goosebumps just now thinking about how great her vocal sounded. And I think that was a great idea to do Canadian songwriters, a collection of them. So it works as a record, and it's really good sounding, and don't miss it. Okay, what about Spoon, Gimme Fiction? What? I'm kicking myself that I forgot about how great this record is. I love this band. A lot of their records that followed this one weren't as good. I think this was really their peak. That other one, Ga 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 Ga, that's really good too, but this one just, I guess this is where I came in with Spoon, so it has a special place in my heart. But I love the tunes where they like lay out like a groove with heavy drums and bass. And this one, the one that really gets to me is Was It You? And Britt Daniels' vocals just have attitude. He just kind of lays it in there like, don't mess with me kind of thing. I just love his vocals. And I love those kind of spiky guitars. But the groove, that's what it does so well. And I was cranking the hell out of this CD, and it was pressing all the right buttons for me. So yeah, this speaker, not surprisingly, can rock. Yeah, I should mention that Tannoys were favorite monitor speakers at a lot of UK studios and Dark Side of the Moon and whatever. A lot of your favorite records were mastered and mixed on Tannoy speakers. So yeah, they play rock really, really well. So I also, by the way, I experiment with different amplifiers for this review. And I started with the first watt SIT3. It's one of my favorite low-powered Nelson Pass designs. That wasn't cutting it with this speaker. It just sounded too soft, too laid back. So out it went. In went the Pass Labs XA25, way, way, way better. And then I went to the bigger Pass Labs, the XA100.5 100-watt monos, lots of power, and they responded to that power with real, yes, they said, yes, we like more and more power, so don't be afraid to hit this speaker with some power. But I also tried it with the Unison Research Trio 25 tube amplifier, stereo integrated tube amplifier, and that combination really clicked. The tubiness was a great match to these speakers. So yeah, if you have a tube amp, don't need a lot of power. I wasn't playing that one as loud, so I wasn't cranking the hell out of it when I was using the Unison, but yeah, and I assume more powerful tube amps would sing as well with the speaker. It crossed my mind as I was doing this thing that the Cheviot is a giant version, a giant equivalent of the KEF LS50. Now that's a much, much, much smaller speaker. It has a 5 1/4-inch UniQ driver with a 1-inch aluminum dome tweeter in the center, but that's like a whole different animal, besides the fact that it's a lot smaller. That one is more of a precision sounding speaker when you get it dialed in just right. This one has more, sounds a lot bigger, has a greater sense of scale to it. So, but I did flash on it, and I did compare it briefly, but that's a silly comparison to compare a $6,000 speaker, $6,500 speaker, to a speaker that's selling now around $1,000. But they both share concentric drivers, so that's why I did it. Now, in terms of the other thing of where I started from, the Klipsch Cornwalls are much bigger speakers, and they have more push behind them, more weight, more power, bigger dynamics, but the Klipsch's don't begin to touch the Cheviot in terms of refinement, coherence, a nicer, prettier sound. Maybe that's what I'm searching for. So they're doing different things. One of the things that is kind of surprising, though, is that the Klipsch does quiet stuff, really late night listening, better. And that goes against what I would have expected, but that's the way it rolls. And one big difference, though, is the size, right? I mean, the Klipsch is a much larger speaker, much less room-friendly speaker. This speaker is not very deep. I will list all the dimensions and specs below. But it's a fairly shallow design. And like I said, it's a big speaker that doesn't feel big. It's not imposing, while the Klipsch absolutely is. And there you have it. My name is Steve Guttenberg. Check out my Twitter at Audiophiliac Man. Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Audiophiliac. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. See ya.